Hello everyone, welcome back to the Crossroads Chronicles. Today my wife Lisa is going to present to you a presentation on the town of Edenton, some of its history. This is a presentation she's going to be doing tomorrow night at the Daughters of the American Revolution. And so we're going to present that to you today and hope you enjoy.
Good evening, and hope everyone's doing well. This presentation is on Edenton, the first colonial capital of North Carolina. This presentation will include the following bits of information: a little bit about the location and naming of the town of Edenton, a tea party. All of you have heard of the Boston Tea Party, but did you also know that Edenton has one too? And then we'll talk a bit about the Declaration of Independence and Edenton's role in this, and some historic people from that time, and then we'll conclude. Edenton. Edenton is located in northeastern North Carolina in the county of Chowan. It is the third oldest town in North Carolina. It dates back to 1668 as a region. It was part and still is part of Chowan, and Chowan at that time was part of the Albemarle region. So the Carolina Charter from King George established Chowan along with 3 other counties that eventually became counties in North Carolina, and one of them a county in South Carolina. So this Albemarle region later became Currituck, Chowan, Perquimans, and Pasquotank counties, with 3 others that were comprising the North Carolina colony, and then 2 others that later dissolved, but the Craven County became, of course, South Carolina region. Edenton is named for Governor Charles Eden, and Charles Eden was really credited for making Edenton the sophisticated settlement that it became. It attracted the attention of other hopeful colonists and settlers, and during this time as governor also, this is where the Church of England was established, when the Church of England was established, and also the first colonist taxes were issued. So Charles Eden, he was governor of North Carolina from 1714 to 1722. Interesting fact about Governor Eden is that Blackbeard, the famous pirate, as well as Stede Bonnet, another pirate, they surrendered themselves to Charles Eden during this time. There were lots of speculations and concerns about that Governor Eden and Blackbeard were working together, business partners, so to speak, and that some of the loot that were brought in by the pirates ended up in the pockets of Charles Eden. Of course, that's speculation, but Blackbeard did not have to serve any time in jail or prison. Charles Eden is buried at the famous St. Paul's Episcopal Church's cemetery in downtown Edenton. It is one of the must-sees when you go to visit Edenton. And Edenton became the colonial capital from 1722 to 1743, and is arguably the first colonial capital. And Edenton became quite the hub for commerce and industry, and a lot of that had to do with a train service that they had. It was freight train service, also passenger service that came right into Edenton. That no longer is the case, but the train service and the maritime business that Edenton had at its bay really had Edenton prospering there for a long period of time, and it was a great place for people to come and settle. Okay, as I mentioned, everyone's heard of the Boston Tea Party, but have you heard of the Edenton Tea Party? Well, a little bit about this. The Tea Act, England's Tea Act was of 1773, and in the fall of 1773, the women of Boston got together and they dumped tea into the Boston Bay. But what's different about the Edenton Tea Party was that Penelope Barker organized a group of 50 women. I think there were 51 women that came together, and they signed a declaration vowing to not purchase any tea from England, to not purchase any clothes, any products that came over from England. They were going to boycott them all. And it was a real political activity for these women. And it was one of the first organized women's events ever as far as political activism. It shocked the world, and England responded in some significant ways, which I'll show you in a moment. But a little bit about Penelope Barker. Her husband was Thomas Barker. He was the treasurer of the province of North Carolina at the time. So certainly he had a big colonial government role, and his wife is now boycotting the place that he works for and supports. But here in this slide, you see the exact declaration or some snippets of the declaration that they signed. So they would not wear any more of the British clothes. They determined to give memorable proof of their patriotism and have accordingly entered into the following honorable and spirited association. They executed this in a faithful and zealous manner, and they wanted to provide a big example and show their patriotism that ended up being one of the preludes to what became the Revolutionary War. So this did shock the world. There was another influential person, James Iredell, who wrote to his brother in Edenton. So James Iredell's brother is in England, and he described the outrage that England was experiencing as a result of what was going on with these women in Edenton. And he actually said in his letter that there are few places in America with so much women or female artillery as Edenton. So that was a little bit about that party. And here's a caricature. Okay, this is from 1775, so a few months after this declaration was signed by these women in Edenton. And you see the faces of these politicians. They're showing up as women, but they have the faces of the politicians from England. And so they're making a mockery of the women who signed this declaration. You have a dog here in the corner relieving itself on the tea. You've got some womanizing going on from a political figure there from England. But so it's just making fun of the women's activism that occurred in Edenton. So obviously the world was outraged. England was outraged at this. And this particular caricature was done by Philip Dahl. He was a cartoonist in England. Okay, here is the Penelope and Thomas Barker house. This is a beautiful house that dates back to the colonial times right here on the Edenton Bay. And this is now a welcome center, so when you go to the town of Edenton, you definitely want to check this out. It is a beautiful sight to behold with some interesting features on the inside of this building.
This house was built in 1782, and it was built in a different location and moved to this spot on the waterfront. Recently, after Hurricane Isabel, the house was picked up and raised, and a new foundation put in that protects it from the floodplain.
So who are some of the other players in Edenton's history regarding the Declaration of Independence? You have Joseph Hughes. He became the first Secretary of the Navy, and he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Hugh Williamson, he was a Doctor Surgeon General of the North Carolina militia, and also signed the Declaration of Independence, and he settled in Edenton. He was originally in the northeastern part of what's now the country, but of the colonies, and he moved and settled in Edenton because Edenton was a hub of a meeting place of political activity, had the train service, so a lot of things going on, as well as James Iredell. I mentioned the brother sending the letter of the outrage that England was feeling as a result of the women in Edenton. But James Iredell became the youngest justice of the first U.S. Supreme Court. His son also became a governor of North Carolina, and he was a Constitution representative along with Hugh Williamson and Samuel Johnston. They were all delegates to the Continental Congress. The James Iredell House, this is maintained by the Edenton Historical Society, and this is another one of the magnificent houses. This is located in downtown Edenton, and it is something we're seeing when you go to visit. I can't not talk about Edenton without talking about our old courthouse. This courthouse is the oldest public building in North Carolina. It's considered to be one of the finest Georgian courthouses of the South, and it's considered to be one of the most important buildings of all of colonial America. This is taken from the Edenton Bay. Mark has quite a bit of history with this courthouse, as his grandmother was clerk of court and worked in that courthouse for over 20 years.
Over 30 years.
Oh, 30 years, thank you. And then lastly, I'm throwing in the Hayes Farm. This is another magnificent Edenton State Historical Site. Actually, it's a local historic site. But as you can see here, in 2021, the state of North Carolina gave money to purchase this and handed this over to the Edenton State Historical Commission, and they are revitalizing this property, and this will be something also to visit.
And this house was